better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll those dice.
Matt, I want
Yes.
you to close your eyes and cast your mind back. Imagine, if you will, the year is 2014. Transformers: Age of Extinction is the biggest movie in the world. Farrell's Happy is at the top of the charts. Obama is still president. And Paizo is releasing more and more adventure paths. The adventure path train rolls onward.
Hooray!
That's right, listeners.
It's Dungeon Master of None.
That's right, and we're back. We're reviewing Pathfinder APs again, and we've made it all the way up to 2014 with Adventure Path number starting with 79, the half-dead city of the Mummy's Mask Adventure Path, and we'll be going all the way through 96, the end of Giantslayer.
With lovely iron gods in the middle, and so we're back in the Pathfinder Adventure Path mines, mining away, reading these 6-part adventure paths just for you, just to review them, talk about what's good, what's bad, what you can steal, what's fun, should you play them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, we are, cards on the table. We have not played most of these. We have played some of them. We are now in the realm where I have played none of them.
Right.
2014 is when I started to make the transition to 5th edition more fully. I was still playing, I think, a homebrew campaign for Pathfinder, but I was beginning to taper off my play of Pathfinder and Pathfinder modules and move full-time to other things. I still stayed abreast of the situation. I still read a lot of these. I was even, I think, planning to run Iron Gods at one point. It never happened. But listeners, just so you know,
Reign of Winter was the last for me. That was the last one I played in. So we're uncharted territory.
Yeah. There, you can find people who have played and reviewed these, and if that's valuable to you, you should listen to them. But I think we have a pretty good handle on how these are going to play out in practice. The nice thing about an adventure path is that they all follow a similar structure and they are all in the same system. So even if we haven't played these scenarios out, I think we can have a pretty reasonable idea of how they are going to go. So, but yeah, that's sort of disclaimer up front.
With that disclaimer aside, we've got a lot of pathing to adventure here. So
let's find some paths, Matt.
Let's dive into our first 6 that make up Mommy's Mask.
The Mask of the Mummy. Mummy's Mask. That's right. This is, well, you all know what this is. This is the Mummy. It's the Mummy. It's but it's a lot of the Mummy. It's 6 adventures of the Mummy.
Yeah, so I think like my judgment here is kind of like, hey, is it like fun, pulpy Egyptology adventure? And I think the downside is like it's not. It's just an adventure path. It's not like really pulp, but like that's on me. Like I was expecting like a little more pulp, a little more The Mummy, and it's not that. But that shouldn't take away from it. I just came in with an expectation, and that expectation's not there.
Yeah, and to me, and this is also on me, the only interesting thing left to do with a Egyptology, mummy, pyramid, tomb delving adventure is to make it pulpy, is to lean into that swashbuckling mummy vibe, because there have been so many adventures that take place in a pyramid or a tomb or something like it where you fight a mummy at the end. So this adventure path does some interesting things. Just generally, it's not that interesting to me because no matter how you slice it, it's still a loaf of Egyptian bread.
Yes, that's right. A loaf of Egyptian bread and beer that we're feeding to our workers constructing the pyramids. Here's the deal. Mummy's Mask is it's got some of the pulp things, like there's an artifact and you've got to get them before like some other people do, kind of, at least maybe at certain points. There's
Sort
a
of.
cult that wants to bring back the mummy,
Yes.
an evil pharaoh from long
And there's a
past to
good
rule.
cult that wants
And
to
there's a
stop that
good
from
cult.
happening.
So it's exactly the plot of the Mummy. And there's artifacts of no unknowable power and tomb diving and traps. But the thing is, for me, and this is my big picture takeaway, if you like dungeon crawling within Egyptian skin and a little bit of, and about a third of it hex crawling with an Egyptian like skin on top, Egyptology skin on top, then this is great. It's not a pulp adventure, it's a Pathfinder adventure with a pulp skin.
Yeah.
Cosmetics.
Yeah. It doesn't take itself super seriously, but it does
No.
take itself more seriously than I think is strictly called for in something as goofy as a Egyptian themed dungeon crawl fighting mummy lord. You know? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's good
And-
about the mummy is it, they're fighting a horrible, undead monster, but it's goofy fun. Brendan Fraser, he's he's doing things. He's slapsticking.
Weiss.
It's
Yeah.
it doesn't take itself too seriously.
So here's like, I think who Mummy's Mask may be for. Yeah, if you read the Pathfinder like world guide or Inner Sea world guide now and we're like, I love Osirion, I love Egypt.
Sorry. There's a clear person this is for. Somebody who loves Egypt. Like, if you love Egypt, if you love Osirion, which I think is a relatively interesting Egypt setting, like they've added a little bit of flavor to it, this is great for you. If you love pyramids and sphinxes and jackal-headed gods, then this is a great adventure. This has everything that you're looking for.
Now, for me personally, I feel like Osirion, the not Egypt, there's just it's magic ancient Egypt, but also a little bit of present day Egypt, or sorry, not present day, medieval Egypt or something like that. There's not a lot of value add. For me, like my favorite bits of Galarian or any fantasy role-playing game campaign setting is where something isn't just like, well, this is not medieval England or not medieval or
Right.
France. And this Syrian is like one of those places in Galarian that is just that one thing. There's a
Right.
little bit with the like Octurne engine and stuff, but that's not really important to this adventure.
Yeah.
So I just, there's no value add for me. It's just Egypt. You didn't do any extra work.
No, they added a little bit of flavor, but it's really just a coat of paint. And I think that is deliberate because people want to play in Egypt. But for me, it doesn't have much. Since we're doing like kind of like big picture, I will say that this is a very serviceable adventure. Like I was expecting to go into it and be kind of bored and disappointed, and I wasn't. I wasn't thrilled, but I didn't dislike what I found. It just really wasn't in any way better than many, many other Pathfinder adventures. But if you sat me down and said, we're going to play this, I wouldn't be mad. I think there's a lot to like about it. There is one sort of like notable exception to that statement that we can get to in a bit. But generally, despite the what I consider to be vast limitations of the overall structure, which is a big MacGuffin hunt about mummies, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good adventure.
Yeah, here's a like a note of positivity I'll add is that if you're looking for an adventure path that's pretty simple, where at every stage the PCs for the most part like have a clear goal. Now, is that goal just kind of handed to them by an NPC or something like that? Yeah, usually. It's not complicated to run at really any point. Maybe parts 3, 4, and 5 are a little more complicated, but it's usually like, hey, go to this tomb, explore these hexes, and then when you're done, you'll come back here and the next thing will happen. If that simplicity, after if you go back to our archives, some of the adventure paths that can get really complicated
Some of
with
them,
what's
yeah.
going on. Like, listen, there's an evil pharaoh. There's some people trying to bring him back. Stop them. The MacGuffins to bring him back are 3. They're Ka, Ra, his Ib.
Ka, Ba, and Ib.
Ib. Yeah. There you go. That's nice. My other big critique, though, is at some point in maybe Adventure 3, your players will sigh and groan in just anguish when you present the next like combat encounter, and it is another 6 forgotten pharaoh cultists. There's a lot of those through the first
There's a lot of them.
half of the adventure, and boy, guys, just maybe mix it up a little bit.
Mix it up. The other big complaint that I have is that there are, and understandably so, but there are so many traps and puzzles and riddles in this adventure.
Sphinxes.
And we have talked about this. These are very hard to do in D&D. I know that traps and riddles and puzzles are like part of the like original blueprint of Dungeons and Dragons, but that's because Gary Gygax hated fun and hated his players. Like they're not they're not good, and they're not easy to run, and your players will be upset. I was upset reading them. There's a riddle in the second to last chapter that I have now read 10 times, and I don't understand the riddle, even with like the answer in the boxed text. I still don't understand the riddle, and I'm still upset about it. That's, and there's, like I said, traps and like puzzles that I just don't think are going to be fun for your players, even if they go into this being like, we know there are traps. I just think it's going to be bad. It's going to be a bad time.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a player, if you have a group that's like, we really like, this is what I was saying, it's dungeon crawling with pulp cosmetics.
Yeah.
If you like dungeon crawling that's heavy in traps, which, I guess Indiana Jones, the Mummy. Okay, yes, the Tomb of the Pharaohs. Oh, no, the blocks have fallen. The robbers are stuck in. There's a lot of that.
Yes.
And if you think your players would find that fun, in any amount of dose, you might like this. Should we get into specifics? Can we talk about the half-dead city?
Yeah. So let's talk about the half-dead city. So I actually, and this is pretty common for adventure paths, I liked this first chapter a lot. I thought it had a pretty fun premise. The idea is pretty cool.
Government-sanctioned grave robbing.
Government-sanctioned grave robbing. This is genuinely like a pretty like clever idea. Like the city of Wati has a bunch of tombs, and to raise funds, the government is like, we're gonna basically like prospecting, like we're gonna hand out by lottery.
Right, we don't have any natural, like we don't have oil or gold under our soil. We do have artifacts. Because this civilization's been here for 8,000 years or whatever.
Yeah. So your players sign up to be a tomb robbing expedition, and they get assigned like a random location that they can go and loot under the approval of the Church of Pharasma. And this is still just
the begrudging approval.
The begrudging approval. This is still just like a dungeon crawl, but it adds some variety. It's kind of like a neat hook. And then there's this additional element of there are these like rival adventuring parties, and there's a handful of them, and you're given details about them, and you're sort of in a competition with them. This is somewhere where I was disappointed in the module because it ultimately ends up not mattering at all, but it's a cool idea until you realize that it doesn't matter.
I think this is a great opportunity for you to play around with it and make it matter a little more. Like maybe starting at this module is essentially 3 dungeon crawls. And you could maybe starting with dungeon crawl 2 sort of play up the other rival parties, and they're maybe mess around with some shenanigans. The players might get a half-hearted ambush. As written, the rivals are just like in the player's final dungeon and like as just an additional villain, and you could make it a little more interesting than that. You can play around with you can see these people are stealing your thing and they're one step ahead of you or something, and yeah, you could make it a little more pulpy if you wanted to do the work.
I mean, I think that this alone would be a great setting for an adventure, a whole campaign by itself. Like, you could make this bit into the whole thing. I thought this was a really great idea, and I was sad that it was so brief in comparison.
Yeah, which moves us to part 2, Empty Graves. And it's in this one the players discover, hey, it's the evil mummy cult that wants to get the mummy back.
That's right.
And I like this adventure a lot because it keeps the players in the city of Wati, but now the curse has caused the dead walk again, and the players are in some of the same places, going to, for example, new tombs, but there's an undead invasion of the city the players have to help defend from if they want to get their grave robbing done. I really like the overall theme of this, where hey, let's continue what we're doing with a brand new twist and a new purpose for the PCs.
I liked this too. I thought this was a great escalation. You're staying in the same area. You can be around the NPCs that you know and like already, and yeah, suddenly the stakes are escalated. People you defeated in the previous adventure may come back, like those rival NPC adventurers. It's a good. This is a good follow up to the first adventure. I really like this 2-part a lot. It does conclude in a so dungeon crawl, because it's always a dungeon crawl, but generally the concept and the execution is a lot of fun.
Right. And then and I think we need to talk about these next 2 installments together because they can overlap in some interesting ways. By parts 3 and 4, Shifting Sands and Secrets of the Sphinx. The villain shifts.
We should talk about these together because you travel away from Wati to the city of what's it called? Tefu. Sorry, I keep trying to say Teru. That's something else. Tefu, where you have to find information from a great library. You eventually end up hex crawling through the sands. Now,
and your opponents now have shifted from rival gangs to kind of this cult, right?
Yes.
Which I think is nice. But again, you're fighting the cultists over and over again.
Now the villain has made themselves clear, is more actively involved. I like the beginning of part 3. You end up in this city. There's a library that's controlled by the good cult, the cult of knowledge. And you have to get information. And this is kind of like a social faction questing section. There's a there's a noblewoman that takes a shine to one of your players, and you have to
is great.
Yeah, this is great. You have to entertain her. You go to chariot races. This is actually a really fun bit because it mixes in dungeons with faction negotiation, with social encounters. There are a lot of times when you'll be fighting the same group of bad guys, but this first part is pretty cool, and it then shifts into a hex crawl, which is initially, I think, to me, pretty cool. But
yeah, here are 2 things. I'm really glad you liked the library thing and saw some value in it. I had a different opinion, which is I felt like this was a great concept, just dog shit execution. My reasoning being,
I glossed over it because I didn't care for the execution either. I like the idea.
The idea
we are
great,
in agreement.
But instead of, let's say, providing a little web map of ideas that the players have to piece together to figure out what's going on with this pharaoh and the history of everything, we're essentially given kind of an abstract score of knowledge points the players get.
I was going to bring up the knowledge points. As soon as I saw knowledge points, I was like, ugh.
If this was written by someone not Paizo, we would have 5 pages of cool handouts of scraps of information from papyri. papyruses that the players like get together, and once they can piece them all together, they can read some thing that's going to tell them what's going on. Or this is a great spot for like handouts and
Yeah.
in-world diegetic like discovery, and instead it's gamified. I do completely agree with you. I love the other social section, which is you have this like awful and obnoxious noblewoman who will like just wants one of the sexy hero player characters to be her paramour and will not stop bugging them, and you have to like entertain her because she controls like access to all this stuff and is not as prickly as the good guy
the librarians are.
Cult. I do like that both of the cultists are Nethys based, which is a good use of a neutral deity. One
that
evil
was
cult,
sort of like a
one
clever,
just not evil cult.
That I am in full agreement. The knowledge point system is incredibly obnoxious, and there is a way to do this. That is interesting. I love a library hunt in my games, but it's because I like to write out the lore and make my players uncover it. So you would need to do that work to make this part interesting, because otherwise you were just doing a series of skill checks and mini dungeon crawls where you earn knowledge points, which bleh.
I know it's hard to write a mystery and to write discovery, but if there was ever a point for it, this like the world's coolest, not Library of Alexandria should be the place to do it.
Yes.
Magic Library of Alexandria is such a great idea. And then I think the hex crawl is great. And the reason we're talking about these two together is they're like parts 1 and 2 of the hex crawl. There's some fun encounters, including with a group of bee people, and then eventually you can find the corpse of the architect of the Sky Pharaoh's tomb. Yeah,
they want you to find their missing royal larva and bring it back. It's cool.
Yeah. Are you a bad enough dude to save the bee president?
The bee president's daughter.
Sorry, this is like a one-off. Like, this is a hex you can completely skip.
I know. It was my favorite hex, and it's not even like, this is really not important. You find the body of the architect who built the Sky Pharaoh's. Sorry, he's a Sky Pharaoh because he's a flying pyramid. Sorry, we really at some point in the last 3 chapters that's revealed. I forget.
I mean, the backstory is that this guy, he was concerned or jealous of the flying cities of Shori. The sort of not East African magic tech ancient civilization.
I've always liked the Shori. I think as far as like dead ancient civilizations go, I appreciate the jungle sky wizards. It's a different take, and they're flying cities.
Maybe
cool.
In a future adventure path we'll finally get to some Shori stuff. Anyway, but not yet. That's just in the background, and so he wanted his own flying sky stuff, and he did a bunch of things, including building some slave trenches. But for very complicated, as straightforward as this plot is, the background is incredibly complicated.
Very complicated.
Complicated reasons. He could not finish this and then was assassinated, but his servants put his tomb, his sky pyramid, into the sky using this magic flying city technology. And
the whole point of this is to explain why you need to find the tomb of the architect, because he's the only one who knows how it was built and how to find it. So you got to go find his tomb. You find him, but that's just the first part of the hex crawl. Then you have to keep on crawling hexes to find the sightless Sphinx, which holds yet more secrets about what to do about this whole flying pyramid undead mummy king.
And again, this is illustrating you gotta love Egyptology. If it makes you excited to prepare and dungeon master of like, oh, the dungeon today is inside a Sphinx. If that's for you and will get you in front of your players, that this is the adventure. But again, like overall, like this is all solid. While it may not be actually like a pulp adventure as the way I consider a pulp adventure, with like betrayals and lots of chases and globe trotting and things like that, and a crazy little clockwork box that unlocks or something. It is still like a solid Pathfinder dungeon crawl, go to locations, fight a battle, explore some places. It's adventure path. It's just a very straightforward story.
And in comparison to some things, there's a great variety of enemies in this adventure. Many different types of monsters, many Egypt themed, but many not. And you will be in a bunch of weird dungeons fighting a bunch of weird things. And despite many of those encounters being with cultists, generally there's a lot of variety, and it's not that. It's yeah.
The fix would be, if you were playing this in Pathfinder 1E, is to build yourself 6 NPC like types of cultist. Like, here's a duelist cultist.
Yeah, yes.
Here's a wizard cultist or something. If you're playing it in another system, just reskin some other humanoid people to
Yeah.
be, and then I think your problem with the cultists would be solved. I like so, and then we get on to, I guess, our final 2 parts of Mummy's Mask, the slave trenches of Hakotep and the pyramid of the Sky Pharaoh. Rob, I have to say, I like the start of slave trenches, which is one of the mini 2 different spellings of mini there, sky pyramids that are controlled by the master pyramid is attacking your former home base of Wadi. You have to go and defend it and fly up and destroy it. That's a cool start.
Very cool.
The rest of the adventure to me felt like a holding path for the final confrontation and dungeon crawl into a very cool, very large pyramid, which is, kind of what you should be expecting from the beginning of this adventure path. You got to go to a place and collect a thing and pull a lever, and then the sky pyramid comes down and you can go investigate it. I was like, as soon as you did the first thing, I'm like, I just skipped to the final one.
Yeah. The coolest part is, a big pyramid shows up and you have to bring it down. And then, there is some perfunctory MacGuffin finding to ground the pharaoh's sky pyramid so that you can board it and put an end to him once and for all.
And then the final dungeon is massive. The entire final adventure path is just one dungeon. It's got your obligatory El Clasico, Rob. Fire, earth, wind, 29th of September, different elemental themes.
Yep. You got a crypt of each of the main elements that you got to find and solve a puzzle around and answer some riddles, check some boxes, and then you can go and you can fight Hakotep and put an end to the undead pharaoh once and for all.
Or will he come back? Yeah, I mean, it's there could be a sequel.
If you fail to do some things, then he will resurrect again. But you will have defeated his pyramid. So here's the thing.
Yeah,
the pyramid isn't even flying. Like you land it. Like
by the time you get to it.
I mean, I get it. You have to bring it down so you can get on it. But I don't know. This whole time I've been advertised a sky pharaoh and a flying pyramid, and the pyramid doesn't even fly.
It's there was some editing juggling. We're like, well, we were going to have a sky pyramid. Let's put a smaller pyramid that is flying in the 5th adventure. I would say you could even, honestly, if you really wanted to just change the location of one MacGuffin, you could have the pyramid at the beginning of 5 just be the final pyramid.
Yeah.
If you were like, I want this adventure to be shorter.
Moved some things around. The pyramid that shows up in Wati can just be the Sky Pharaoh's pyramid. Yeah, and you do things a little differently. My other complaint, which isn't entirely fair, but listen, this is the 5th or 6th or 7th time that we have fought an undead wizard at the top of a mountain or tower or pyramid or ziggurat. And I get it. To challenge a level,
Rob, you signed up for the Pathfinder Society. You know what you were getting into. Now you're saying you have Pathfinder Society PTSD. I'm sorry. I want to hear your belly ache.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
No,
maybe a little variety is all.
You're absolutely right. Yes. Well, Rob, so I guess overall thoughts and rating on our scale from 1 to 5 Pathfinder Wayfinder devices.
despite my griping, this is a 3.5 at least. Like this is a very solid adventure. It's very well written. The only things that it suffer from is that the Egypt setting is not that interesting to me, and the riddles and puzzles and traps to me are just like they're just tedious, you know. But generally, like I think this would be fun to both play and run. It wouldn't be my first choice, but like it wouldn't be that hard to do. I can only think of a few places where I would make like dramatic changes. Like we've talked about a lot of adventure paths that we liked more, where you would have to do a lot of work to run the whole thing. So
where they don't like fit together very
Yeah.
well at all.
This is cohesive. This is a functioning 6-part adventure. So I would like to give it a higher rating. It's not that interesting, so I can't. But there's really not anything super wrong with it.
No, this one is solid. If you like the theme and you want something that is pretty straightforward to run, you could do worse.
You can do worse.
It is I will give it 4 bags of popcorn if you like the straightforward stuff. If you don't want to do an adventure that is, again, just Egyptian themed dungeon crawls and hex crawling, then it's obviously there's very little here for you.
Yeah.
Other than, I think the number one thing to steal is read through the beginning of Shifting Sands for like advice on how to play a noble person that means the player's ill will, but just like wants to be entertained. Great concept for an NPC to put into your campaign.
Steal Mummin Ninfara. She's great. Her whole section is incredible. That is a very borrowable NPC and situation. That part was excellent.
Yeah, let's get rid of the Ruby Pharaoh and put her in charge.
That's right.
Her.
Let her be in charge of Osirion.
All right.
Okay.
Rob, speaking of things that are not the same old, we have now moved on to 85 through 90 Iron Gods.
Iron Gods. That's right. We are finally to something weird, something different. This is your journey to the barrier peaks. This is your Numeria. This is the science fantasy, weird alien technology, weird science adventure. This is for your Spelljammer heads, for your Book of the New Sun lovers. This has got it all.
Yeah. This is asking the important questions, Rob. What if ChatGPT could do magic and become a god?
Yeah. What if you let an algorithm run so long that it developed enough worshippers that it could give divine magic to them? And the answer is, well, it's something like Iron Gods is the answer to that.
Yeah. And if our last one was a tribute to like the classic Egypt themed D&D modules like Pharaoh and Desert of Desolation, then this is a tribute to, as Rob said, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, White Plume Mountain. Some of the crazier ones. I don't like, forgive me if I'm quibbling too much. How much of this is science fantasy, and how much, like, in the sense of like, there's like technology there's magic, but it's actually technology and it's just weird. I mean, a lot of this is like, well, here's a laser gun. This is a laser gun. Hey, here's a robot.
Science fantasy is incorrect. That is not technically the setting here, but the vibe is similar. It is if you like those things, then you'll probably like this. But no, here is a laser gun, and also people do magic, which are both sort of not exactly what people are talking about when they say science fantasy. But yeah, this is Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. This is all those classic alien spaceship has crashed on a fantasy setting type of games, taken to taken to its like absolute logical conclusion, played absolutely seriously, not just like,
Yes.
oh, here's a bit, like followed to its complete conclusion, done beautifully, done masterfully.
If the compound word techno barbarian just like makes your dungeon master wheels start a spinning, then this is the adventure for you. And to put my
and I am
cards on
that
the
person.
table,
There's a barbarian with a chainsaw on the second, like at the front of the second adventure, and I started hooting and hollering as soon as I saw it.
I think that is, again, so everyone can like judge our reviews accurately. If just Egypt but with magic, very little value add, doesn't do much for me. Crash spaceship from thousands of years ago with techno barbarian tribes in a like a fantasy land with wizards and stuff, which is the area of Galarian called Numeria, really does it for me. I
Yeah.
love this area of the campaign setting, and so it should be no surprise that I like so much of this adventure path.
We are gonna try to be objective to the extent that we can, but like, yeah, to cards on the table, I fucking love this shit. Like, this is the kind of thing that I am all like. I'm in the middle of a Daggerheart campaign that takes place in a a setting modeled after this. I love this stuff.
All right.
But it is worth mentioning,
Yes.
making very clear, if you don't like laser guns in your fantasy, you will not like this. There is no, it's not like something that you can sort of like ignore. Like, there are robots, there are laser guns, there are aliens, there are lightsaber things. Like, this is science fiction fantasy.
Rob, if I could put some water on your fire without a flame, psst, it's radiation. That's how we talk here in Numeria.
In Numeria.
Is that one downside is if you were going to play this in Pathfinder 1E, I'm not like a huge fan of their technology guide. I think the rules are overly complicated. However, if you treat the tech devices that are littered throughout this book and are so fun to give to your players as simply, items with powers, and use some simpler rules, for example, from Pathfinder 2E or many other systems, I think you'll have a better time. For me, like reading through some of the tech guide along with this campaign, I was like, I hate these rules. They're too complicated.
Yeah.
But if you like them, that's fine. There's just a warning for you.
This is definitely a second caveat, potential downside, is that it's written explicitly to use the technology guide. They say so in the text repeatedly. And I also don't like the technology guide. It was one of the last splat books that I paid any attention to for first edition. And it's not that bad. It's
not bad. It's just
Pathfinder
1E is getting really complicated.
It's already very, very complicated. So I did not appreciate an additional system of technological devices on top of the impossibly complicated system that already existed.
When it came out in like 2012, 2013, 2014, I can't remember when, you're at a decade of writing rules onto the 3E 3.5 system. And that's a lot of time to be writing rules that just expand what's going on mechanically for a system. So I think they can be forgiven for it to be unwieldy. I can't imagine you could write, 3 rule books a year for a system and it not be unwieldy. But yeah, that's where we're at. Should we?
I mean, this is the era of Pathfinder when people on the forums were describing how to create a tiny fairy gunslinger that could get 36 attacks per round with reloading wrist mounted pistols, or raging charging pounce barbarians. This is insane times to know anything about Pathfinder 1E rules, and the tech guide didn't help. But yeah, let's get to the nuts and bolts.
Talk about the themes and parts of this campaign. So the backstory here, Rob, is what if a lawful neutral Starship Enterprise galaxy class, maybe even bigger, crash landed thousands of years ago, and a society of techno barbarians grew up in it, and at that starship's core was an AI that became a god by building simulated realities with people with free will that began to worship it. That is a cool backstory for a villain. There's a god you have to kill, and it's a robot god.
Yeah, this is cool, and I really like this because this is a trope, an idea I never get tired of. Like, it's a classic cyberpunk science fiction idea, like an AI becomes so powerful that it's a god. But like,
But in
a
Galarian, you can become a god. Lots
that's
of people
the thing.
have become gods.
That's what's really cool about this. In a fantasy setting, you can become powerful enough that you can give spells to your followers. So like, Unity, our antagonist, is doing the same thing that like Wintermute does in Neuromancer, but then it actually becomes a god and can like grant divine spells to its android worshippers, which is sick. It's such a good idea for a villain. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the themes of this campaign are dealing with Unity's demigods in various ways. So basically your villains, antagonists, and allies are mostly AI demigods. If that sounds cool to put into a swords and wizardry campaign, and to me it does, I think you will like this campaign. The other like major thing that's going on here, there's two, is investigating dungeons that are actually bits of a starship. I think that's fun. And then dealing with kind of the techno barbarian and their weird wizard allies, the Technic League, and eventually you get to overthrow them in this campaign. Sorry, we're well into spoilers territory.
Yeah. No, and this is, in addition to having a great setting and central idea, is a well-designed adventure path. There are a lot of dungeons. This is Pathfinder, but they are all different. Many of them are different parts or different types of spaceship inhabited by very interesting and unique enemies with very interesting and unique mechanics to deal with what's going on there. So this is a masterful adventure, in my opinion.
Let's get into specifics, shall we?
Yes, let's start talking about it.
Part one is Fires of Creation. You players start in kind of a small, relatively civilized town in Numeria, Torch. That's main export is good smithing.
Torches. I love Torch as an idea. It's built up around a spaceship exhaust. Like, it's just, the spaceship's thrusters are just like firing perpetually, and they use those flames to forge sky steel. That's a great science fiction, science fantasy premise for a town. Torch is a neat town, and this is a great premise for a start. The torch has gone out. We can't do our skysmithing anymore. What happened?
Yeah, and the players are sent, gathered by the like town council to investigate. There's also a disappearance, and they can go find a person responsible for this like evil scheme, who happens to be a cleric, which they'll find out at the end of one of these AI demigods. And it gets pretty much straight to the like, hey, here's a weird dungeon that's full of robots and stuff. And so, yeah, I think this is a great way to start this adventure.
I also like that, unlike a lot of Pathfinder adventures, there's explicitly not a ticking clock here. It tells you, so you find out that the android cleric Mayanda is actually a cleric of Hellion, who is a clone, a child, an offshoot of Unity, a distinct AI demigod, and she's trying to transfer power to Hellion so that he can destroy Unity and be free once and for all. But it'll take her months to do this. So you have time to go into the caves and explore and come back into the town, and it's written in such a way that you're expected to do so, and events happen each time you go in and come back out. I think it is often expected that players are going to do this, but I appreciate when it is written into the adventure.
Yeah. The adventure does two other like good jobs of like slowly easing the players into the story of these AI siblings and weird gods and what their relationship is. There's just a little bit revealed while doing a great job of forefronting, hey, there may be some aliens here. There's definitely some robots. Also, yeah, these technically guys and gals, they seem like real bastards. There's one NPC that will make the players like not feel kindly about the Technic League. And already they shouldn't, because they're kind of weird evil people.
Yeah, you're meant to not trust them, and it's unclear sort of like what their deal is until later in the adventure path. But then, and then you get to make good on how annoyed they made you the entire time.
And then we're off to, and this is, I think, pretty great in that we're immediately like, I was like, oh man, we're not going to fight these. I know Pathfinder, we're not going to fight these demigods until like book 5 or whatever. Nope. Book 2, you go fight a demigod.
Book 2. You go to Scrapwall, which is a great, I think, a great little town. It's a section of the crashed spaceship or the of Numeria where it's mostly just junk. People are not all that interested in what they're to find here, and so it's been taken over by a bunch of gangs and some lords of rust, and you have to go there, make them impressed with your prowess, and then delve deep into the scrap wall to find Hellion and put an end to him before he can do nasty AI demigod things.
So again, I feel like we have to explain here, because unlike Mummy's Mask, this adventure is like is complicated. Unity is an AI that made itself into a god, but it's stuck in the starship and its influence is limited. It's created several attempts to further its reach or release itself from its prison. Hellion is the first of these, and it's a demigod copy-ish of Unity. And if I had one critique, it's that Hellion, and maybe it's not a critique, it's just, it is what it is like a straightforward god. It's just angry and it wants to kill Unity, but it's a demigod. So there's not like a lot of interesting stuff going on with Hellion. It's just like, hey, this is a villain that wants to destroy something, and destroying it would also mean destroying the town of Torch, so your players should care about that.
Yeah. Hellion is not that interesting except as a part of the broader plot, and is kind of a gateway to understanding more about Unity and the greater threat. But Scrapwall itself is interesting. There's a bunch of cool NPCs and factions and weird loot to find and things to uncover, and then you can finally get to and confront an actual demigod, which is pretty cool. Where you then learn a little bit more about what's going on. Something that this adventure does do, and I think that even though it is complicated, I think the sort of like natural next step for the players is clear at all points. But there's no NPC telling you that you need to go and fight Hellion, and then after you fight Hellion, you need to go and find out what to do about Unity. You should, if your players are at all like looking around and paying attention, it will become clear what they need to do, but it doesn't hold your hand. It trusts the players to sort of like investigate and find out, which I appreciate. I think works well in this adventure, but they keep highlighting it, which makes me think that they're a little bit concerned that players aren't going to be able to handle this level of freedom.
Yeah, this is often a problem with Pathfinder things. I guess there is that cleric of Bree.
Bri? Yes.
Bri. I don't know how you say it. She's like, hey, I'm concerned about Hellion. You should go deal with it. And it's the town's healer. So if you do need an NPC mouthpiece to tell the players what to do, that's there. Of course, that's not the best way to handle it. Hopefully the players will want to find and kill this god organically or inorganically, because it's a robot god.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about your cute goggles wearing cleric girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah,
real
Dinvaya Lanale. That's true. She can tell you, she can like provide instruction, but the adventure is not written in such a way that you are expected to have an NPC tell you when and where to go places, which is often the case in a Pathfinder adventure path.
So there's 3 AI gods in this adventure: Hellion, the final one, Unity, and in the middle section is Cassandali. Right? Did I say that?
Sandali. I think so.
And
Your
the
other
middle,
android girlfriend.
yes. The so Cortana, not Cortana,
Yeah,
essentially
that's right.
Cortana. This is Yudi's second attempt to further its divine influence and accidentally created another AI demigod, but this one doesn't have a body at the moment, is just a memory chip that the players need to discover, because it's the one thing that can be used to like destroy Unity and also gain access to Unity.
Yeah.
And you spend the next 2 adventures, which let me give you their names: the Choking Tower and the Valley of the Brain Collectors, gaining parts 1 and 2 of Not Cortana. This is kind of like a huge middle section detour to get a thing. Now, I didn't much care for the dungeons in the Choking Tower. The Valley of the Brain Collectors is like, hey, if you want some Lovecraftian sci-fi with like Migos, and if the Dominion of the Black is at all interesting to you, then you might like this. But for me, this middle section here was much less interesting than the beginning and the end.
I agree. I particularly wasn't terribly interested in the Choking Tower. That this third chapter also includes just a detour through a random town, which I was especially not interested in. It's not bad, and the tower itself has a lot of information about Unity, about the Technic League, about robots and things. It will help provide context, but it just compared to the first 2 and the last 2, not that interesting. I did like Valley of the Brain Collectors, which is like a point crawl.
It's a point crawl.
It's a point crawl. There's a cool 4-armed alien bounty hunter renegade that you can make friends with, and a bunch of Migos, and this by itself is pretty cool. It's just it is very much like a, here's some stuff you have to do before getting to the actual like adventure. There's a like a neat part of the backstory where the divinity, the not Starship Enterprise, was attacked by this Dominion of the Black, and so this is providing again some helpful backstory and context.
The Dominion of the Black are like, they worship the dark tapestry, the darkness between the light of the stars, the evil, possibly Cthulhu monsters / dark side. They kind of like the anti-life equation. They have flesh farms.
If you like Lovecraftian stuff and you want, this is a good Lovecraftian detour through a valley where horrible alien monsters are harvesting people's brains. There are parts of this that
this
are
is
good.
Lovecraft's space stuff specifically.
Yes. There are parts of this that are good and parts of this that are not so good. This is better than, I think, the third chapter, but like Matt, I didn't love this. Sort of functionally, this chapter especially has a bunch of like fancy loot in it. So if for your player's power level, they need a lot of laser guns so they can fight Unity at the end of this adventure, and this is where they're going to get those laser guns. So it would be hard to cut these entirely, but I bet you could mash these 2 together into like one shorter adventure that wastes a little bit less time.
One positive thing about these middle adventures, and then 2 negative things. I like Adventure 4's point crawl kind of open-ended nature as you explore around. 2 negative things is Adventure 3, you kind of go back to a town, but it's not your same town. You kind of have to introduce a new town. And then, the linkage tissue. If I was like doing some serious rewriting of this adventure, the way it's written is like the players might get the barest inkling of a clue about our not Cortana demigod from defeating an Hellion. And when they're going through Hellion's dungeon, Hellion can appear on like any AI text screen to talk to them. I would just give them an artifact or a clue that's like directly points them to this thing instead of a hint. Because then there's all this like linkage material that just like, oh man, this is like a real stretch to like get your players to go find Cassandra Lee. And I just it's not my favorite.
Yeah, the other I think positive that I would say about these two sections is they've got a lot of like really cool monsters and NPCs in them. There's like a worm that walks with a laser gun. There's, like I mentioned, they're what they're called.
A lot of this adventure is there's X monster with a ray gun with a laser sword,
and I love that shit.
I love it.
There's a Kasatha, which is like an alien from another world, kind of like it's like a four-armed alien, like the aliens from John Carter of Mars. What are they called?
Tharks,
something like that.
Rob. Yeah. Tharks.
And there's a bunch of weird enemies. So it's.
I will point out there are not Tharks in the Pathfinder universe if you go to the not Mars planet, but yeah, they are like smaller Tharks.
Yeah. So there's some interesting stuff here. Like it isn't a chore to go through, but yeah, you're supposed basically what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to find basically Cassandra Lee's what's left of her body and what's left of her mind, and then sort of reinstall her in an AI core, and then you have your own Cortana who can tell you what to do.
Yeah. Now, I think it's parts of this is cool because you're rebuilding an AI god, but at the same time, that god is still like an NPC that then needs to tell the players what to do, which is not my favorite like adventure design, right? Where you lug around the important person who can show you the way and the players are there. But I think this requires a little bit of skill, finesse this as the GM, where not Cortana is simply like a repository of information. And by not giving her like much of a corporal form, like, she's essentially an iPad that you give to your players like they're little toddlers to keep them on track. It does a lot to prevent it from being like escort the cool NPC to the location, right?
Yeah. Cassandra Lee is an interesting NPC and becomes very interesting at the end. It is sort of up to you and your skill as a game master to make her interesting, but also, I guess, to like limit what she can do and tell. I mean,
here's
the problem is,
I would do. My advice is Cassandra Lee basically knows a lot, but is a blank slate. There are parts of the adventure that kind of encourage this later on. Like she knows, hey, Unity is an evil god that will, probably destroy a lot if it becomes a god. You should prevent that from happening. She knows that. Her personality, like her functions, should be like nothing. Players love nothing more than having a robot friend that's like a blank slate.
Yeah. They do.
If you play her like that, I think you will succeed.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you've been given lots of robot, analogs for this in fiction, so just draw from that. But yeah, this is a bit of a detour, but then we're back to we're basically in the end game. The players have to basically go to the
final two adventures, the Palace of Fallen Stars and the Divinity Drive.
Yeah, you have to go to the mountain where Divinity is, where Unity is rebuilding, and find your way inside. First, that means
unfortunately, there's a giant city around that mountain.
Yeah, there's a city
and
there.
In the middle of that city, in the entrance, is a palace where a ruler and the Technic League, where Conan the Barbarian, who is basically high every day off of plasma conduit fuel. Coolant or something like that, given to him by evil wizards, lives.
Yeah, Conan the Barbarian is fucked out of his gourd, is incredibly unhelpful, and there's evil tech wizards.
He is the ruler of Numeria in name only.
In name only. They're the actual power behind the throne. They obviously they've also this is part of the complicated backstory. Unity has basically taken over the brains of like one of the most powerful members of the Technic League, and they are all in either actual like service to Unity or unwittingly in
Yes.
serving it. And so the Technic League wants the players to fail, does not want them to be able to get inside the mountain to go after Unity. So you have to either make friends or help Conan the Barbarian get clean, and then he'll help you, or you have to do some sabotage or subterfuge. This is the Palace of the
This
Fallen
is a
Stars
fairly
is
open-ended attack
it's
the
good.
castle, which
It's
but
a
it's a
yeah,
space
I love it.
castle. It's
Yeah.
great.
There's a lot of
Um,
weird NPCs, a lot of interesting tactics, a lot of like cool factions, and yeah, it's basically like assault the castle, get inside, find your way into the mountain, and there's a lot of ways to go about it.
Can you help Conan the Barbarian quit cold turkey? It's like, can you get Conan into a methadone clinic? Let's find out. That's just kind of a funny idea for
It
an
is.
adventure. You can obviously, I think I like the open-endedness of the resolution of the technique. Like the players could take over the technic league. They're probably pretty familiar with technology they don't understand by now. They could install Conan's girlfriend as the ruler. They could become the rulers of Numeria themselves. It's all up to you, but none of this matters at the moment, because unless they go into the biggest hunk of the starship, which again, we end Adventure 6 with a mega dungeon and destroy Unity, then it's all for naught. So the final campaign is once again one giant dungeon, but this is a giant spaceship. But don't worry, it's not all robots and stuff, because there's big habitat pods for the players to explore. I thought they were going to do something where they went into some of the simulated realities that Unity created, but I don't think any of that's there. But it's a big fight with a big evil alien god, and I think a really satisfying ending.
Yeah. There is sort of like a virtual fight at the end with
Right.
Unity, but there's not a lot of you don't explore the virtual worlds that Unity has created. But there are three sections. First you're basically going up to Silvermount, and then you're inside Divinity, and then you are actually like in the God Mind. There's a bunch of segmented dungeons. There's a bunch of great fights. There's really cool enemies. There's a like a mega church pastor in the
Yeah.
in the middle of this,
Yeah.
like
He's an AI mega church pastor.
Unity's during one of the previous Pathfinder expeditions, an android making machine got turned on, and then Unity created a construct to be their pastor, and then it took on a life of its own, and now it's just like, yeah, now you have a you have a big evangelical community in the center of this mega dungeon, which
Joel
was
Osteen is trying to get you to use Gemini. Do you say yes?
do you say yes?
It's very amusing. This is one of the most like flavorful, okay, if we were like, hey, solid right down the middle, we got a mega dungeon with air, earth, wind, and fire from the last adventure path. This one is great. There's a ton of variety of both social counters, exploration, weird tech to deal with, and then yeah, you get to fight AI megachurch pastor and digital angels made by this god.
Yeah. And then you have to defeat Unity in the flesh and in virtual reality or ascended,
Yes.
space.
And then what I said about like this being a very satisfying ending. If you play Cassandra Lee, not Cortana, as I recommended, where she are like a blank slate, where you tell them information about the world, what it's like to be immortal, immortal on this plane, like what should be done. There's also like you can find little chips that you can insert into Cassandra Lee to give them domains. That's a little hack to me. I like the
Yeah.
idea of like really drive home to your players. You are building this like AI demigod's personality from scratch. And so they are what you have made of them. And then the players have the opportunity to, instead of Unity ascending, Cassandra Lee ascends as a god of like renewal, innovation and constructed beings. But like what she's like is up to them. As written, it's based on what chips you put in her. But I would play it as,
Yeah.
what kind of person did you make Cassandra Lee into, since she's your kind of only way, she's just an iPad, only way to see the world.
Yeah. And this is I think a challenge for a GM, but could be really fun and really satisfying. And yeah, you get a chance to basically install her as a new deity. This is canonical, by the way. I think this is Cassandra Lee is now part of the Galarian pantheon, a neutral god of artificial life, basically. But I also think that's like clearly the most satisfying ending. It has they do say that you could just take Unity's offer to like become one with the mind and immediately ascend, but then the author's like, but I hope you don't do that. So one assumes
you'll be a
that they're not
slave to
going
Unity. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love this. This is a fantastic ending to a great campaign.
Yeah. Before we get to our final thoughts, Rob, I have like a big question about this campaign, right? So the whole theme is, hey, swords and sorcery are meeting a bunch of spaceships shit, right? Star Trek stuff. What do you think is better for, so I know the opinion of the, you can read the player's guide for yourself for free. I know the opinion of the adventure path, but do you think it's better to build characters that are like already like weirdo androids and stuff like that? Or is it better to build characters that are your typical like fantasy characters and let them become weird over time?
I think it's so much more interesting to just, I think the most interesting thing is like you're a barbarian and then suddenly you have a chainsaw, or you're a ranger and you're learning to use a light, I think being just like a normal fantasy person and then like learning to become weird, developing weirdly is so much more interesting than being a like tech person. And, yeah, but I can see it both ways.
If you were I think if you tell players, hey, this is tech fantasy campaign, they're like, well, I want to be this cool android thing I saw in Archive of Nethys. Okay, fine. If you're into that, that's fine. I agree with Rob, the becoming weird over time. The problem, I think, is with the Pathfinder 1E rule set, in which certain types of feats and character classes like inventor and alchemist and gunslinger are like way better at using, ray guns and technological devices than rangers can ever be. As long as you're generous with your retraining rules, like, hey, you've been playing around with that device for a day of downtime. Do you want to change 2 levels of your class from ranger to, gunslinger or inventor or something like that? Then I think I like this approach. If you're sticking to Pathfinder, really rules is written, then yeah, maybe it is a good idea to let some of your characters be things that can decipher technology, because they're gonna need it in this adventure.
Yeah.
And you better learn that alien language, by the way. Encourage your players to, I don't know why they wouldn't want to learn the alien language, but they should.
If they don't, the adventure becomes very difficult. So somebody should pick it up, but
yeah, or they should pick up, a Babel fish somewhere,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Rob, what's your overall thoughts and rating on Iron Gods?
I'm giving this, I mean, I would give this 5 stars.
I don't think we've given any adventure 5 stars.
I've never given 5 stars, and I'm not ready to give that to this. The middle does drag a little bit, and it drags a lot. So like I want to give this 4-5 though, because it's so unique, it's so interesting. It's genuinely, aside from like all the coolness of the setting and the conceit, like a very well written and very like interesting adventure, even with the like the sort of sag in the middle. This is one of my favorites. This is definitely top. I want to say this is top 3 for me. Top 5 for sure.
This one's a 4 for me. I don't know if it's in my top 3, but I did absolutely love it. I'll also point out that a lot of the like weird dungeons that are spaceships are really like ripe for the picking for your adventure. If you
Yes.
want to put a weird spaceship in here and you're like, dang, Barrier Peaks is really punishing or something like that, you can find some that are maybe a little easier to run in this to plop
if you like
into
the like
your
crashed spaceship
campaign.
as a mini dungeon or as like a side quest, this is a rich source for pulling those from, for sure.
Yeah, I love this area as a campaign setting. I love that there's more to explore with this starship if you want to continue this campaign. And yeah, if I think a perfect ending to this campaign, if your players didn't want to, let's say rule Numeria or decide you're going to let them ascend with Cassandra Lee as their archons or something, and that's the end of the campaign, is to find the portal in I can't remember if this is one of the official things in the starship where they can travel, teleport to other worlds.
I
And
think
stuff
it's
like
there.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a fun book of the other systems in Galarian, and this would be a logical extension of this campaign. So one of our favorites, Iron Gods in the books.
All right, Matt. Home stretch.
Woo-hoo.
We are on to Giantslayer. Adventures 91 through 96.
If the first one of these was Pharaoh from classic D&D, and the next one was Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, this one is against the Giants, which, is kind of interesting in that, like, these modules back in the early couple years of D&D were like loosely connected, kind of, and almost the first proto adventure path. And so now we've returned to an adventure path that is similar in theme. Giants are attacking. You must kill them.
That's right.
As a full 6-part, the 700-page Pathfinder adventure path.
And
Rob, what do you think?
The writers even admit in like one of the prefaces that like the whole point of this is nostalgia based on like those like giant adventures. What I think is that it's fine.
Rob, I'm going to say something a little more mean. This was one of my least favorite ones to read, and I would hate playing this. Now, I don't have anything against the Giants from original D&D, but when you add in the Pathfinder like level of complexity to these type of adventures where stat blocks are by the end of the campaign 2.5 pages, I'm not interested in doing that sort of old school thing. This was I thought this adventure, to give you a background, like the players start in a small town like in many D&D villages. It eventually becomes under attack by orcs, and then every adventure is you're basically moving up the monstrous humanoid giant food chain from orcs and trolls to hill giants to stone giants to frost giants, fire giants, storm giants, etc., cloud giants, etc. You will fight giants over and over again.
You will fight giants over again. You're correct, and I have two nice things to say about this adventure. And they are very conditional.
I have one.
So the first nice thing that I will say, and I'm trying to keep us honest, but especially like me honest. So even if you don't love it, the connective tissue of this adventure is well established and coherent. Everything sort of like makes sense. You do this, you go there, you do this, you go there. The escalation of threats makes sense, and the things you have to do. Are they particularly like compelling? No, but like everything is clear compared to something like adventures we have loved, like Skull and Shackles or Kingmaker, where like the latter half is very tenuously connected to like the front half. This adventure path is better in that way. Now, I would still much rather play or run one of those earlier adventure paths that gets a little like off the rails at the end, but I do want to give it credit for being cohesive and coherent from beginning to end. The second thing that I will say, and this is
I will go ahead and wait before you get to your second thing. Add, like, if your player characters are just like, I am not about the big discussion of what to do next, right? And I
Yep.
dread that as a dungeon master. If you're just like, congratulations, you killed the last ice giant. Guess what? Here are the fire giants over there. They're attacking. Go kill
Yep.
them. And then, oh, you killed the fire giants. Guess what? The storm tyrant, the final boss, has arrived. He's up there. Go kill him. Like, every adventure, basically, except for maybe the first and maybe the fourth one, it's like, here's the next evil big person.
next
Go
thing to
kill
do.
them.
Yeah. The other thing I will say, which is sort of a plus, if your players want to just build some fucking combat monsters and go to town on a bunch of big meat sacks, this is a pretty good adventure for that. If they really want to build something that is good at putting out, in Pathfinder 1E, like 20 attacks around and doing stupid shit with, power attacks and combat maneuvers, this is the adventure for that. Let them build their most broken dude and kick giant ass. The downside is that if they don't do that, some of these adventures are going to fucking drag on forever because there are so many giants and they're just big sacks of hit points.
Yeah, they're big sacks of hit points. Like, if your party can't get through, 500 hit points at level, like, what, 12 in
12,
2 rounds, you're going to be really bored,
Yes.
So there's a lot of combat. This is a combat focused adventure. I will say my fun points is the starting adventure, I think, is solid.
I like the starting adventure.
A hill giant wants to impress the storm tyrant, like Thanos style, by being like, if I murder a lot of people, will you love me? Is the hook for the first 2 adventures. And they send orcs to attack a town. You gotta defend the town. It's a great opening to the first couple
This
levels.
is actually,
is defending a town from
very
attacks.
briefly. This is a pretty cool starting adventure because it's very layered. It starts with a murder, so your players are uncovering are solving a murder and then doing a little.
When I was reading this first adventure, I was like, I really love this adventure path. By adventure 3, I was like, I really hate this adventure.
Yeah. But there's a murder they solve in a little dungeon, and then they come back, and it's under attack by orcs. This is a really cool, dynamic, interesting first adventure. This was great, and then it immediately becomes very, very boring. Every other, I mean, how much time?
Every other adventure, with the exception of the 4, is here's a giant citadel. Go murder the biggest giant there. 4 is a little interesting because there's the frost giants are building an army, and you're kind of given more open choices to just destroy that army than you normally are in these adventure paths. So it's like, hey, congratulations, welcome to the little people resistance. You are now the Maquis against these ice giants. Go destroy their command and control, put some warheads on foreheads, and in a subtle way so you don't get all killed.
It's cool. You get to do a bunch of guerrilla warfare, and it's written in an interesting way so that you need to be clever and make good decisions and not try to fight the entire ice giant citadel. I also think that the villain of 4, Skurgard is the town. Skirkatla is maybe the most interesting villain in the entire adventure path. She's a frost giant Jarl who made herself into a grave knight because she just loved killing so much that she didn't want to stop killing because she was dead. If I were going to bother to run or rewrite this campaign, I'd probably make her the big bad and do a bunch of things differently because she's just a lot more interesting than the storm tyrant. But the first and fourth adventures of this adventure path are pretty cool. The rest are just here's a fort full of giants, go nuts.
This is an adventure that really rewards hey, all of our party is optimized for combat. We will head into the room and fight the things until they're dead, except for the fourth adventure. But yeah, I would say if you've ever thought like, ooh, what if my evil villain was amassing an army and the players had to use like insurgent style, what do you call it, warfare, where one side has a lot of power and the other doesn't?
Asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical warfare. If
Yeah.
I want my players to
Right.
do that,
If they need to be reading Mao Zedong to win, then
Yes.
this is the adventure for you. Yeah.
though there's not a lot of like rallying the people.
That's
However, there are
true.
a lot of marches through icy peaks, so maybe Mao is a
Yeah.
little useful. So if you've ever thought about like, oh, that would be a fun arc for my campaign, read book 4 of this, the Ice Giant Tomb.
Ice Tomb of the Giant Queen.
Ice Tomb of the Giant Queen. Is she a giant who is a queen, or just a very anyway? Yeah, it's read it for inspiration on how to run that. But other than that, just never-ending fights with
the fifth
with giants, with just not a lot of other story going on. To me, means this is one of the least favorite ones I have read in this series so far.
The fifth one is especially bad. It's just fire giant after fire giant after fire giant. There's a little subplot with like the Storm Tyrant has an orb of dragon kind, and like the red dragons are, some of them are like working with you, but that's not, again, that's the most, it's really the most interesting thing that happens. There's a little bit of like a subplot with like some old dwarven giant slaying heroes, but
yeah,
none
you
of this
can get
is
a cool hand. Have you ever wanted a metal hand? Yes.
You can get a metal hand.
Yeah.
You can get the Hammer of Thunderbolts in this adventure, which is exciting. Everybody loves a Hammer of Thunderbolts.
At the end of the day, though, like the things that make, with the exception of parts of book 1 and parts of book 4, the things that make the silver linings of this adventure have nothing to do with the adventure. You can put a cool metal hand that your players can chop off their hand and put a hand on in any adventure. You can put a villain that has the Orb of Dragonkind, is enslave some dragons to work with them in any adventure.
They are not in any way important to the adventure itself. They just happen to be in it.
How many stars, Rob?
Well, sorry, I do want to briefly mention the final dungeon, just to point a couple things out.
Because once again, we've ended with a dungeon.
It's another flying castle. And I swear, Matt, I was about to just throw something when I was like, I swear to God, if this is another fight with the flying castle on the ground, I'm going to be so upset. Fortunately, your players get on the castle and it takes
get to
off.
Fly to the castle.
You get to you get to fly. It isn't a flying castle. You fight the Cloud King. That's sorry. Another thing I wrote down was that there's a random hill giant like warrior with her tribe who's named Rex Skuggs, which is a name that I really liked.
Rex Skuggs.
Rex Skuggs. Anyway, that's
Rex Skuggs. I'm calling you out, you low down yellow bellied giant.
That's the only. Those are 3 things that I liked about this adventure. Stars. The
Ballad of Rex Skuggs.
Rex Skuggs.
And
stars. 3.
1.
I don't know. I only give it 3 because there's not really. This is actually one of the. I looked this up. A couple of different reviews and ratings, and like this is consistently rated like one of the like lowest, least favorite adventures in the entire Adventure Path catalog. So like it's not just us.
It's not terrible. It's just it is in no way for me. And so that's why I've got a 1 star.
A 1 star.
I told everyone what I like about it. Everything else is nothing for me.
Here's the thing. It's functional. It's not very interesting. So I got to give it 3 because it's not broken, which is not always true of Pathfinder adventure paths.
I feel like we're getting out of the territory. You know, we've left our second darknesses.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That's just where we started our rating system. So we have to stay true to the rating system.
All right. I think this was a good mix, though, Rob, because we had
this
one
was a good mix.
Like pretty in the middle, at least according to our average rating.
Yeah.
1 at the top end and 1 at the bottom end.
At the low end. None of these was awful. I obviously really liked Iron Gods. I did like Mummy's Mask. It was not the adventure that I want to play in or run, but for what it was pretty good. And Yeah, I don't know. Mostly I'm just annoyed that I had to spend the time reading Giantslayer because it just wasn't bad. It just wasn't very interesting. I wish that it had stayed. I wish it had somehow held on to the energy from the first adventure, which I really did like. I thought that was super cool. But yeah, I just don't care for a bunch of assaults on giant fortresses. It's just not that interesting. It's just
Neither
also, oh, I
do
just like
I.
I'm not running first edition anymore. And when I think about running all these combats in Pathfinder first edition, I just like I get PTSD. Like I don't think that I like I've run a lot of Pathfinder combats, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think in the last like 10 years of my life I have run this many combats in all of my games combined. Like it's so many fights. That's probably not true. But
Again,
like,
listener, like our rules for these that we would like cut down the number of
Yeah,
fights. The
yeah.
problem with this one is if you do that, there's nothing
there's
left.
nothing else. There's nothing left. There's nothing going on.
Yeah. Well, that's Mummy's Mask, Iron Gods, and Giant Slayers. Next time when we return to Walking the Path, Rob, we've got Hell's Rebels and Hell's Vengeance, a pair of paired adventure paths. So that's kind of exciting. And then Strange Eons after that.
That's right. I'm excited about all of those. I think we're getting into some interesting territory. Thanks for coming with us on this Finding This Path, listeners. As always, you can find us on our Discord or on Blue Sky. You can email us at dmofnone@gmail.com.
Rob, should you mention that you have an Instagram and a TikTok for
That's right.
our show?
We have an
We've
Instagram
had
and a
this
TikTok.
for several months. You can follow us there if
You can
that's
follow
your
us there.
preferred media social of choice.
That's right. We are now on many different socials. There's a link tree in the show notes that you can find those on. If you want to like look at our little clips on TikTok or Instagram. You can also support the show at patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None. As always, thanks for listening and keep rolling them dice.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know